Welcome to the Irish Baptist College podcast, Let's Talk. The Irish Baptist College exists to magnify Christ, advance the gospel, and strengthen the church. We do so by being serious about the Bible, the gospel, and about being Baptist. In this summer series, you'll enjoy being encouraged in your faith and ministry while getting to know some of our visiting lecturers. I'm your host, Davey Ellison. I'm the Director of Training and Lecture in Old Testament at the college, and today I'm talking with Benjamin McKay, although I know you as Benji.
Yeah, Benji tends to be the thing that has stuck through the years, but Benjamin on the birth certificate. I'll answer to anything though, to be honest with you.
And probably your mother as well.
Yeah, I'm Benjamin to her.
Yeah.
Benji to everybody else.
Great, well we'll stick with Benji. Thanks Benji for making the time to join us today.
It's good to be here.
We're recording on a sweltering hot week. Have you had the barbecue lit yet?
I had the barbecue lit last week, although I was with family for dinner last night and we sat outside for food. It's pretty hard to beat.
Excellent. And is that the most exciting thing you've done this week?
Probably. I've been in the throes of sermon prep this week. I'm preaching on John 17 at the weekend. So
okay, brilliant.
I don't know if we're allowed favourite passages, but I think that is probably my favourite passage in the whole of Scripture. So I've been thoroughly enjoying that sermon prep.
Good.
Exciting to me, at least.
Well, that is exciting, and a great window into Jesus' prayer life for us.
Yeah.
Good. Well, whatever church you're in, we'll be blessed.
I hope so. Time will tell.
Well, for listeners who don't know you, maybe you can give us just a brief introduction. So, family interests, home church, role in the college, so what you do as a visiting lecturer, and an interesting fact if you have one.
Question. Yeah. Well, so I'm Benji McKay. I am from Carrickfergus, currently living in Carrickfergus. I go to Carrickfergus Baptist, although I'm doing a fair bit of preaching around at the minute, so don't get to see the home church quite as much as I would like to, but also enjoy seeing different churches and experiencing that in different ways. My role in the college, I've been guest lecturing for a little while, so I teach the Gospels module, and I've done a few lectures on Paul's letters as well for the second years, which I've really enjoyed. Interests, I love reading. I'm a bit of a newbie to reading in the past few years. Before coming and studying in college, I hated reading, to be honest with you. I studied English at A-level and still hated reading. But
that's not a good advert.
My teachers hated me. But in recent years, really enjoyed reading. So I've been enjoying doing that out in the sun these past few days. It's been great. I enjoy playing guitar, enjoy playing golf, although I play it terribly. And I love coffee. I've probably been branded as a coffee snob. I prefer coffee enthusiast as a term, but look, if the shoe fits, I'll take that term. It's okay. Interesting fact, I already said I was having a meal with my family last night. We were desperately trying to think of an interesting fact because I realised pretty quickly my life is fairly uninteresting. But what I came up with was I have the gene that makes coriander taste like dish soap. So I think you either have or don't have this gene, and if you have it, it makes coriander taste like dish soap. And if you have been wondering all this time why coriander might taste a little bit strange to you, that's why.
I've never heard that in my life before.
Strange affliction. It doesn't really affect me all that much, to be honest with you.
Well, you wouldn't like coriander, but maybe you do like it if it tastes like dish soup.
Well, yeah, not so much. I would certainly rather it didn't taste like dish soup.
For sure. Great. Reading, do you have a favourite genre of book?
That's a good question.
Or type of book that you like beyond kind of Christian non-fiction?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, I have been reading a little bit of Christian fiction recently, which it's always recency bias, isn't it? You like the thing that you're reading most recently. Been reading a couple of Doug Wilson's Christian fiction books and really enjoyed them. But as I say, it's kind of new to me. Other than that, kind of historical fiction would be a bit of a go-to as well. Or just in general, the classics. I love reading things that other people have said are brilliant, and I want to see if I think they're brilliant or not.
Good. Have you read any Daniel James Brown yet?
No, I haven't.
His big book was The Boys in the Boat, so it's historical non-fiction. So
Okay.
he writes history, kind of like a narrative.
Okay.
Load of excellent books by him.
Worth reading.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And I'm not a coffee enthusiast, snob. Favorite blend or roast? Is that an adequate question for a coffee enthusiast?
That's okay. Favorite. I love Ethiopian coffee.
Okay.
Especially in a nice warm weather, nice clean kind of fruity coffee.
Okay.
Can't beat it.
Means nothing to me,
That's
but
okay.
I'm sure some of our listeners will appreciate that. All of that's really interesting, but lots of it is relatively unimportant. The most important thing about you is that you're a believer. So I wonder if you could share something of your conversion experience with us.
Yeah, sure. Well, I had a wonderful privilege of growing up in a home where my parents were Christians, my both sets of grandparents were Christians, really my whole extended family were Christians, and so was totally surrounded by Christianity and examples of faith. And I suppose then coming alongside that was being sent to everything church-wise, which really was brilliant. And I remember distinctly one day, I think I was 3 or 4 years old, I was really young, was sent to the Sunday school at my granddad's church. He was a minister in Dundonald Presbyterian. Went to the Sunday school and came away with just a real understanding that I needed to be saved. I had obviously heard clearly that I was sinful, but also clearly that there was a saviour who could forgive me of those sins. And one of the standout memories of that day was I had just got a new inflatable toy that was probably meant for the beach, but I insisted on sleeping on it that night, and so we inflated it. I got it in one of the bedrooms and I was sleeping on it, but that was also the night then that I asked Jesus to forgive me, and so those two memories kind of run parallel with each other, which is a little bit strange. But that was the first time I remember, I suppose, asking Jesus to save me, committing my life to Jesus. But I was so young, and with that comes an understanding that you would hope would grow then through the years. And I would say faith-wise, I ebbed and flowed a little bit through school. I struggled. My dad passed away when I was 10 years old, and so it was a really difficult thing to wrestle with, I think, at that age. And so through teenage years, would have called myself a Christian, but probably wasn't really living a life that reflected that. And so it wasn't really until I was 17 or 18 that I suppose felt a love for Jesus and wanted to start following him every day, very consciously, very actively. And that was through, I'll maybe mention a little bit later, through the ministry of John Piper and his Ask Pastor John podcast. I started listening to them, consuming a lot of theology, and it just got me so excited about faith. With that then started reading the Bible and just, I suppose, felt on fire, to use a term that we're maybe familiar with. That first time really seeking to follow Christ personally, and maybe not just piggybacking off the faith that my family had through my life. So I think that although I was converted at a very young age, started actively following at a later stage.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. You talked about John Piper. That's maybe going to be this next question. So one of our key aims here at the college is not just theological education and information, but spiritual formation, growth in Christian character. So how has that happened for you? What have been the primary influences on your spiritual growth?
Yeah.
And maybe just specifically in what way they helped, kind of concrete examples are often useful.
Yeah. Well, but there's a bit of a spoiler there at the end of the last question. I'll save that for a second answer to this. The individual that stands out to me the most as having a key influence on my Christian growth was in that time when I was around 17 or 18. It was Paul Savage. He's now pastor of Craigavon Baptist, but was the assistant pastor in Carrick Baptist, which is where I was attending at the time. And he came alongside me and another really good friend of mine, and weekly did Bible studies with us. We did, I don't know if you're familiar with the 4U books. I think it was Romans 1-8, 4U. And
yes, the Good Book Company stuff,
really excellent. And we just worked our way through that, studied it once a week with him, and that was in that time where I was seeking to learn more and read more and take faith a lot more seriously. And he was just so candid and open in the way that he shared with us in these studies, which I found so helpful and so refreshing. And
Good.
he wasn't afraid to try and stretch us either. You know, he would challenge us where we needed to be challenged. He would get us thinking about theology, and if there were long silences, he wouldn't fill them. He would wait for us to fill them, which for anybody leading a small group is a top tip. Don't fill the silence. And so I'm just so grateful for the time that he invested, and I suppose specifically me, but the both of us at the time who were doing that Bible study. And that it just whet my appetite and started to satisfy my appetite for learning about theology and digging a little bit deeper. The second part of that is John Piper and specifically those Ask Pastor John podcasts, where if people aren't familiar with them, a listener will send in a question. It could be a really niche kind of specific situation. He will do his best to answer it biblically and grounded in theology. I think what it helped to do was give me a framework of thinking for theology. Where God has influence in every aspect of our life, no matter how niche or mundane people might think it to be. It's so important that we think Christianly about everything. And recognize God's sovereignty and his control and his influence on all things. And I think that just created a bigger view for me of who God was. And that was really formative at the time.
Yeah, for sure. Great. Well, great encouragement for pastors. You're talking about Paul Savage taking the time out with just two people, and sometimes we're consumed with numbers and, you know, how big a meeting can we have and how many people, but the influence just a couple of people. And to see where you are so today. Much. No, that's great. Excellent. Another key aim for the college is preparing people for ministry. So we don't just want head knowledge, but we want practical knowledge and practical understanding of the gospel and scripture, so that people can be prepared for ministry, whether that's a voluntary ministry or a vocational ministry. So what's been your ministry journey? And then the second part of that's just how you bring that experience into your teaching. So just outline your ministry experience. You're still pretty young, Benji, so we'll put that on the table
Spring
now.
Don't feel like it sometimes. Well, I suppose journey into ministry started on A-level results night. I planned to take a year out and work for a while. And again, another big influence was Peter Lawther, who was pastor of Carrick Baptist at the time, and he came up to me on the night of A-level results night and said, look, we know you're taking this year out, but we'd love you to get more involved in church life and see behind the scenes a little bit. And so they invited me to do like a fairly informal church internship, but one that just afforded me opportunities I wouldn't have had otherwise. And that really I see as the beginning of journey into ministry, where I think the elders identified some form of gifting there and wanted to nurture that. And I think that's a wonderful example to set. It really is a brilliant thing.
That's a huge frustration sitting in the college, that lots of guys come to study with us because they want to, rather than the elders have kind of identified them and encouraged them. So it's great to hear that happened for you, Benji.
And I think it was the catalyst then that led to coming to study at IBC. So I did this internship, and then about halfway through that year, they're kind of said, look, would you consider thinking about studying at IBC? I'm not, or studying in general. I don't think they had put it so as specifically as IBC, but we're certainly pushing me that direction, just to say that.
You're just making sure they don't get emails from me.
Yeah, definitely. But they wanted to encourage me in that way and said, look, think about this carefully and prayerfully. So I did. I came to open day at the college, sat in on a couple of lectures, and it just felt like totally the right thing. Felt so right. I felt like I'd walked into home. It just felt a real confirmation of God's leading in that. So studied in IBC, didn't know where that would lead, didn't necessarily have a particular hope of where that would lead at the time, but I think pretty quickly started to feel God's leading towards pastoral ministry. And so I did my placement in Larne Baptist, aiming towards pastoral ministry, and then after college I then went and served as the assistant pastor in Ballycrochan Baptist alongside Neil Watson. So that was with the ministry partnership scheme for 2 years, which was just brilliant to give that opportunity that might not have had otherwise. And then they kept me on a further 2.5 years. So just tried to involve myself as best I could in as many avenues of ministry there. And I'm so grateful for how they let me just go and make mistakes, but also learn and gain experience and serve them.
Excellent. And how do you bring that to bear then on your teaching, your experience on placement in Larne, your internship in Carrick, the 4.5 years in total in Ballycrochan? Yeah,
I think gaining experience in ministry in that way allows you to understand where people are in some ways, and then when you come into the classroom, and suppose specifically for a subject like the Gospels, it's easy to link it to, well, okay, this is how you might best teach the Gospels in ministry. That's a very obvious link. But something I remember when I was studying in IBC, lecturers doing was sometimes taking a little bit of a sidebar and just saying, well, this is a difficult theological issue. How might you bring this to bear in the local church, or how might you help people think this through who aren't sitting in theology lectures all day every day? Like, how can you make this accessible for people? How can this be relevant for people in the local church? And so giving opportunity for discussion around that, I find is a really helpful thing, because sometimes theology can exist up here a little bit, but you want it to be applicable for the people we're seeking to serve and teach in local churches. So just giving an opportunity to kind of chew on those things and think those through, I find I knew that was helpful for me. I hope that's helpful now as I'm on the other side of the lecterns, doing the lectures.
Yes, well, I didn't check student feedback this morning, but from memory, I think it's okay. So you teach the Gospels primarily. You teach a few lectures in Paul's letters, so all kind of New Testament area. What are the primary ideas or the primary concepts that you want to communicate, or you would like the students to leave your lectures or your module with? Yeah, it's an interesting question. In the module, we cover, I suppose, quite a broad scope of the Gospels. So you begin by looking kind of background context of the Gospels. You'll look at the historicity and reliability of the Gospels, and then some of the source material. So you initially lay the groundwork for understanding and trusting the Gospels. Then we'll look at the Gospels themselves and the key purposes and themes in each of the individual Gospels, and then move on to kind of the themes that go through all four of the Gospels: Kingdom of God, the temple, the death and resurrection of Christ. And so we try to cover as much as we can. But I wanted to think about this and what would I want the students to leave with, and as a Baptist at heart, I came up with three points. And are they all alliterated, are they?
Vaguely. I did my best. So I want them to leave with the understanding that the Gospels are true. I think probably what catches the students off guard a little bit when digging into the Gospels, maybe more deeply than they have done before, is that when you see critical scholarship of the Gospels, sometimes it can be a bit of a surprise that there is a bit of pushback on the reliability and historicity of the Gospels. But I want to instill a confidence that these are reliable documents, that these are history, and that we can trust them, and that they provide a sure foundation for our understanding of Jesus and the theology and teaching that he brings us. So the Gospels are true.
I really enjoyed. So I taught the Gospels before you, and I really enjoyed that lecture. And I don't know if you still use this, but the wee table with the manuscripts, the number of manuscripts, like, it's just astounding the evidence that we have for the manuscripts of the Gospels in comparison to other works that are considered as true and accurate and reliable.
It is overwhelming evidence, and you start to wonder, well, why do people push back? But we have the means to push back against them as well, which I think is an encouraging thing to find. The Gospels are true. I also want them to see that the Gospels are beautiful. I think that there is such a richness to the Gospels that we don't don't always see if they're not taught consecutively in church. I think when you see how well they're written and how coherently they're written and the themes that course through the veins of it, I think it's just a wonderful thing to see. And you get that if you're afforded the time to study them. And then lastly, that the Gospels are vital. I think that perhaps my tendency might have been to tend towards Paul's letters. I find that a little bit more comfortable territory sometimes, but I think in the Gospels we see Jesus in a unique way. We see his person. We see how he interacted with people. We see how he dealt with the marginalized and people who struggle. And I think that's something that we don't see in the same way in other parts of the Bible. And so there's a unique presentation of Jesus that we see in the Gospels that is such an encouragement to us, and we would be missing out so much if we didn't have them. And so they're just so important for us, especially in the life of the church.
And evidenced by the fact that you're not preaching Paul this coming Sunday, you're preaching John.
There you go.
Or Jesus'
been
prayer.
Influenced by my own lessons.
You've convinced yourself.
The proof is in the pudding, I suppose.
Yeah, that's great. And I do think there is such benefit to spending that time delving into them. I think we struggle. I think preachers struggle with the Gospels because they're not quite biography. Yeah. But they're not didactic letters like Paul's, and so they can be difficult to know how exactly to preach.
Yeah, I think you find yourself sometimes having to wrestle a little bit more with why is this passage included? Yeah. You know, sometimes it's you see Jesus' power, you see a miracle, okay. You see, well, Jesus is powerful and he's amazing, and you want to see that in all of the Gospels, but there are reasons that each of those individual miracles are included, and it's to show us a different aspect of his glory, of his power, of what he came to achieve. I think there's a depth there that we need.
And I think we often miss that out because we read the small sections in isolation rather than kind of reading chapters upon chapters or indeed sitting down and reading the entirety of the Gospel.
I think we read the Bible rightly in some ways as very different from how we might sit down and read a novel. I think that's right because it's a different thing. But if you were to engage in that task and read bigger swathes of the Bible, you might get a greater impression of the picture that's trying to be built up of who Jesus is and the individual intent of each gospel author. I think that would come through much more clearly if you're not just seeing 12 verses at a time, that kind of thing. So both are good, but both are necessary.
Excellent. What do you enjoy most about being part of the college community? So obviously you've experienced this as a student. You're now kind of on the other end of it. You're experiencing it as a lecturer, visiting lecturer. So why trek the whole way from Carrick once a week to teach? Why, you started whenever you were in ministry as well, why take the time out of, because you have to make the time to do it. Take the time out of ministry to prepare. I suppose it's not taking time out of ministry, but you have to carve that time out of your week to prepare, be here, teach, to mark essays, which is definitely the most exciting part of teaching. Why do that, and what makes you want to be here as part of the college community? Yeah,
it's funny, when I read the question for the first time, what's your favourite part about the college community? I had to fight against the urge to say table tennis when I was studying. When I was studying in college, there was far too much time spent playing table tennis. But I promise that's not the favourite thing. I promise.
It's definitely high up there for most people.
Look, it's fellowship, you know. you can work around it somehow. But yeah, I think it's been quite a different experience being on the other side of it. I started teaching the Gospels module last year, and I was sat in that exact position 7 years before that. It was an extremely surreal experience, really. But why do it? I know I benefited so much from studying in college. I benefited from the study itself, being exposed to theology that I probably might never have thought about. It was such an enriching experience. And so to be on the other side and to be able to give back in that way is really such a privilege for me. I personally enjoy the teaching side of it so much. I love being challenged and stretched in that way to remember what I was taught those 7 years ago and to think it through and to try and communicate it well. But I think that feeds into the college community, because I get to see guys then who are maybe coming through with a view to go into ministry, and I know that exact feeling, and it's an amazing thing to be a part of that. And if I can help in any way in that, it's just a pleasure for me to do that. We need each other in ministry. We can share our strengths and help each other in our weaknesses, and I think it's an amazing opportunity to do that.
For sure. Great. Well, look, Benji, we're so glad that you do make the time to be part of the college community. We're grateful for you coming and teaching.
It's a pleasure.
And that your 3 years as a student here didn't scare you off completely, that
Not
you're
quite.
willing to come back. We're grateful for your time and for your input into the college, and we hope that'll continue for many years.
Absolutely.
And thank you for listening to the Irish Baptist College podcast. The college is committed to training men and women for gospel service here in Ireland and across the globe. If you're interested in preparing for ministry at a college that is both academically rigorous and vocationally focused, then I want to invite you to explore the opportunities available to study with us at the Irish Baptist College, and you can do so by visiting our new website. The college is now open for applications for September. Please join us again next time.